All right, this is Chuck Rudolph. He is a registered dietitian, and he's here to give us a 5-minute lowdown on eating right for your metabolism.
Basically, what I try to teach people how to do is to balance their insulin response, okay, to each meal. If we can control how our body responds to each meal and control that insulin hormone, it's very difficult to actually store body fat, okay? So what we're going to try to do is every time we eat, there has to be at least some sort of protein. There has to be some sort of fat, a vegetable or a carb or fruit. But every time you eat, it's got to have proteins and fats. The reason being is carbohydrates spike insulin, okay? Proteins do not, fats do not, okay? So the whole idea is if we can keep each meal balanced, definitely protein, definitely some fat, maybe vegetables, maybe a little bit of a high complex carbohydrate or some fruit, then we reduce the risk of having what's called hyperinsulinemia, okay? What that means is if we eat too much food at one time or we go too long in between periods with eating, the body is going to come out and say, hey, you know what? I finally got some food, but it gives a large insulin response. So we get like a room full of insulin to a rice, chicken, heavy meal of too many carbohydrates, too much food, and what ends up happening is that we have a room full of insulin. We don't want that. We want asteroids. We want the insulin just to go grab the food, bring it in, utilize it, and have our energy. Anytime we have insulin floating in the system, we're going to actually increase that risk of storing body fat. Its main job is to store, okay? Whether it stores carbs in the muscle, whether it stores protein in the muscle, fats in the muscle, whatever it does, that hormone's job is to store nutrients, okay? So the other thing that I try to teach is we got to eat every 2.5, 3.5, 4 hours. The reason being is if we go too long without eating, blood sugar starts to drop. Once blood sugar drops, cravings increase, okay? Cravings now become carbs, candy, soda pop, something to get that headache to go away, something to calm the system down. Unfortunately, now we have a craving and we can't control the craving, so we overeat, okay? The problem at that point is we get this enormous rush in insulin, okay? So now we have all this insulin floating around in the blood, and it's going to start storing. The bad thing is now we have this rush of insulin, and on top of that, it's going to pull all your nutrients in, and now we're going to drop blood sugar again. So then the cycle just keeps continuing until we stop that and get more of a balanced action, okay? So the whole idea is every time we eat proteins and fats, maybe mix it with a little vegetable, maybe mix it with a little complex carb. That's the whole idea. Complex carbs are going to be rice, brown rice, whole grain bread, bagels, pastas, things like that. They're good. They have some fiber in them, but they don't have a lot of fiber in them. Okay, so the whole idea is the more fiber and fat you have in the system, the slower the transit time from the belly to the small intestine is. And we want that to be a small or very slow transit time. Anything that goes fast from the stomach to the small intestine, we get a massive insulin response. We want a slow one. The amount of meals that you should have complex carbs varies from the person. It varies on the individual's body composition. It also varies on the individual's intensity of workout. So if an individual is only burning 400 calories a day, the amount of carbohydrates that I'm going to recommend is going to be lower. They're going to be earlier in the day. They may be one for breakfast. You may have one for lunch, and then the rest of the day is going to be more a vegetable, fat, protein combination. Those that are burning 1,200 calories, you know, they may need more so that they can continue that type of activity that they're doing. So it's very dependent on an individual's activity, how they're working out, what is their workout. Is it more mass training? Is it more heavy lifting on load? Or is it more endurance training? Okay, so it all kind of depends on the individual. The whole idea of having carbs by themselves or with something or protein fats alone, the thing I tell people is you guys have heard of an essential amino acid, right? That means you have to eat it. You've heard of an essential fatty acid. It means we have to eat it. The body doesn't make it, but we need it. There's no such thing as an essential carb. And the reason is because the body can make glucose when it needs it, except in a performance state. You know, like my hockey guys that are burning 3,500 calories, they need carbohydrates to perform. Okay? We're here trying to learn to lose body fat and be healthy. We don't need carbohydrates. What we need is fiber. Okay? So the essential carbohydrate should be fiber. But we haven't got that far yet. It depends on the individual. I mean, it depends on the person's body fat. What I do, I use the Harris-Benedict equation. And I think Dietitian.com, she has a calculator on there that actually factors that information, your height, your weight, your age, hip-to-waist ratio, body fat percentage, activity level, all that goes into calories. Okay, you can't just put someone on 1,200 calories. If they're burning 1,400, we're going to hurt somebody. It's not about the scale. Okay, and it's very hard for people to not look at the scale. But the only thing the scale tells me is how much muscle you're either burning or losing. Okay, because it doesn't bother me none. I care less what the scale says, unless here we are 4 weeks into a program and you're down 20 pounds, yet the body fat's not gone anywhere. We got a problem. However, if you're down 2 pounds in 4 weeks, but we've lost 4 inches around your belly, you're in 2 sizes different, we've done a lot. You know what I mean? We've done a lot of good work right there. Okay, so it's not all about the scale. Eating too little is probably the worst thing to do, because what happens is the body senses starvation. And once it senses starvation, your metabolism goes from a Ferrari down to a little Tercel. We're in trouble. Okay, so we go from burning like crazy to not burning anything at all. And then on top of everything else, once you do go to eat, it's going to store as much as it can, because it doesn't know when it's going to get any more food. 4 ounces of meat, a good 15 grams of fat, some vegetables. You can never go wrong with that, man. Ever. And you can actually overeat and won't store fat. Every 3 to 4 hours, as long as you're getting a good amount of protein, a good amount of good fats, sleep plays a role. But once you start balancing insulin response, sleep gets even better. It's one of the first things I hear from people. Besides, the belly fat goes first, and then sleep patterns increase. Because once you control the insulin response, all the other hormones come together as well, because that's the one that's controlling everything. Everyone should eat within the first 45 minutes of waking up, even if it's just a hard-boiled egg, even if it's just 12 almonds. Protein shake, anything to turn off the negative hormones that put you to bed. That's the key. And what happens is when we don't eat breakfast, the hormones start getting out of whack, big time. Your best sources of fat are going to be all your nuts, peanut butter, almond butter, avocados, olive oils, canola oils, safflower oils. Those are all very good. Even butter is a good source of fat as long as it's in the right amount. You know, maybe 1 to 2 teaspoons, but then that would take away your fat for the meal. Okay, so now you've got the teaspoons of butter on top of asparagus with a fillet. You can't have 8 ounces of steak and 40 grams of fat and a whole bunch of corn, as someone thinks is a vegetable, okay? Because now what happens is now that total calorie is over 750, 800 calories. We're going to spike insulin, okay? So we still have to keep each meal in check on total calories, because no matter what, I mean, even if you ate a whole avocado, it's too many calories at one time. It depends on how many you're going to get for your workout day versus off day, and how many times you're going to eat a day. As long as you're not eating twice a day. I say a minimum 4, maximum 6. There's some of that's, in my opinion, calories in, calories out do play a role, but I think the way the calories are distributed throughout the day is more important. Because I got people that can eat 1,900 calories, 2,000 calories, and they're like, I can't even eat all this, But they're still losing body fat. And the reason being is because we're balancing insulin throughout the entire day. There's never a craving. There's never a carbohydrate craving. There's never a sugar craving. You're never hungry. If you're hungry, we're losing. That's a problem. If you have hunger, we are losing. That means your blood sugars drop, and your risk of choosing the wrong food drastically increases. Correct. The more you can balance your insulin response, the healthier we can be. Because hyperinsulinemia is directly related to central obesity, heart disease, cancer risk. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. 2 gallons a day, easily. Everyone's dehydrated. That's the problem. We have a product coming out called Hydration Factor. And that is a product that we've actually have a clinical study that showed it to increase intracellular hydration, which is huge. Not just water in the body. I'm talking actually into the cell. which is critical. Again, to me, it depends on the intensity. You know, I only burn 700 calories when I work out. I get up, I have the reload, some amino acids. I go work out, and I sip on the amino acids during. Post-workout would be protein powder, and I like fat. So, you know, what I do is going to be protein, peanut butter, and almonds, or peanut butter and blueberries or blackberries. The darker the fruit, the more antioxidants that's in it right now. And there's a lot of data coming out looking at those antioxidants are actually being very powerful and help in assisting fat burning. Protein powders, Greek yogurt, non-fat cottage cheese, fish, yeah, protein powders. There's vegetarian sources that are not, they're more high in fat and protein than they are just carbs and protein. I always recommend protein at least, or protein and fat within an hour before bed. I don't really have a problem with it. A lot of people have allergies to it. So if you know you don't have an allergy to it, I'm fine with it. If you're going to drink milk, I say 2% of whole. Raw if you want. Yeah, skim milk is all sugar. It doesn't make sense to me. That's a massive insulin spike with skim milk. Yeah, I'm not a real big fan of soy protein because it's hard to digest. It doesn't have the greatest amino acid profile. Now, if you're a vegan, then obviously we would choose the soy protein. But if we're going to use a whey protein or a caseinate protein or an egg protein, and that's okay with you, that is plenty fine. And I think the amino acid profile and the biological value, meaning how much you retain of that protein, is far superior than soy protein. My biggest thing that I tell people is don't be afraid of fats, okay? And make your portions on your kids' plates. That's one of the easiest way to do it. Use your kids' plates. We don't even have big plates in our house. We've got little bitty kids' plates that your meat goes on, vegetable goes on, and the fat. So the whole idea is then when you're done, because that's a behavior. Plate's done. You know, I grew up in the Midwest. Clean your plate, and our plates were this big. You know? Now, I eat off their little plastic IKEA plates. Whatever fits on there, it's what we get. And it's just a behavior. The biggest thing is the behavior.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.